The neon sign of Mercy General Hospital flickered against the rain-slicked pavement like a dying heartbeat. Dr. Elena Vasquez pressed her back against the cold brick wall, surgical scrubs soaked through from the October downpour. The cigarette between her trembling fingers had gone out minutes ago. She couldn't light another one. Not after what she'd done. 3 milligrams instead of 0.3. The mistake echoed in her mind like a death sentence. Mrs. Chen, 74 years old, grandmother of 6, had trusted Elena with her life during what should have been routine surgery. Elena had been working 36 hours straight, vision blurred from exhaustion, and the pills she'd been taking to stay focused. The pills that were supposed to help but were slowly destroying everything she touched. The hospital doors burst open, spilling harsh fluorescent light onto the wet concrete. "Dr. Vasquez," a young nurse's voice cut through the storm. "They need you in Trauma Bay 3. Multi-vehicle accident. Severe injuries." "Get Dr. Morrison," Elena said without turning around. "I can't," but the nurse was already gone. And Elena knew there was no Dr. Morrison tonight. There was only her, with her shaking hands and her deadly secret, and whoever was bleeding out on that table. She flicked the dead cigarette into the gutter and walked back through those doors, each step feeling like a betrayal of the oath she'd sworn. First, do no harm. Trauma Bay 3 was chaos. Blood on the floor, machines beeping frantically, and in the center of it all, a man who looked like he'd been carved from marble and then shattered. His expensive suit was torn and soaked crimson, but it was his eyes that stopped Elena cold. Even through his pain, even as his life leaked out onto her table, those gray eyes held an intelligence that seemed to see straight through her. "What's his status?" Elena snapped, falling into the rhythm that had saved hundreds of lives. "Multiple lacerations, possible internal bleeding. Vitals are stable but dropping," the nurse rattled off. "No ID, but look at this." She held up a blood-stained business card. "Damen Cross, private security consultant." Elena's blood turned to ice. She'd heard that name whispered in hospital corridors, always followed by warnings to stay away. Private security consultant was a polite way of saying he cleaned up messes for people who could afford to make them disappear. The kind of man who knew where bodies were buried because he'd put them there himself. Doctor, his pulses dropping. Elena stared down at the man who could destroy her career, her freedom, her life if he lived long enough. The syringe in her hand felt impossibly heavy, one small adjustment to his IV drip, a slight miscalculation that could be explained by his injuries. No one would question it. Damon's eyes found hers, and for a moment, the chaos of the trauma bay faded away. He was dying. She could see it in the pallor of his skin, the way his breathing had become shallow and desperate. But those gray eyes were still sharp, still aware. "Please," he whispered, his voice barely audible above the machines. "I know what you're thinking." Elena's hand froze. "But I have information about your brother." The words hit like a physical blow. Miguel had been missing for 3 months. The police had stopped looking weeks ago, dismissing him as another addict who'd probably overdosed in some alley. But Elena knew better. Miguel had been clean for 2 years, working as a mechanic, trying to rebuild his life. He wouldn't have just disappeared. "You're lying," she breathed. Damen's lips curved into something that might have been a smile if it weren't so full of pain. "Miguel Vasquez, 26 years old, tattoo of a rose on his left shoulder for your mother." He was asking questions about someone he shouldn't have been asking about. Someone who wanted him silenced. The syringe slipped from Elena's numb fingers, clattering to the floor. "Save me," Damen whispered, blood bubbling at the corner of his mouth. "And I'll tell you where to find his body." Elena's world tilted on its axis. Her hands moved, but she didn't remember telling them to. Surgical precision took over, muscle memory guiding her through the motions while her mind screamed. Save him to find out Miguel is dead? Or let him die and never know the truth? Why should I believe you? Her voice was steady despite the hurricane inside her chest. Damen's gray eyes locked onto hers, and something in that gaze made her breath catch. Not threat, not manipulation. Desperation. "Because," he rasped, "I'm the one who helped him disappear." Elena's hands moved with surgical precision, but her mind was a hurricane. Every stitch she placed in Damen's torn flesh was a thread, binding her to a man who dealt in death. She worked in silence, hyper-aware of his eyes tracking her every movement even as morphine clouded his system. The trauma bay had emptied. She'd sent the other staff away with excuses about needing space to work. Now it was just the two of them. Predator and prey, though she wasn't sure which was which anymore. "You said you'd tell me where to find his body." Elena's voice cracked on the last word. "You lied. I never said he was dead." Damen struggled to sit up, his face going white with the effort. "Your brother was working on a car that belonged to Vincent Morrow." "You know that name?" Everyone in the city knew Vincent Morrow. Old money, old power, old sins that stretched back generations. The kind of man who owned judges and buried scandals in concrete foundations. Miguel found something in the trunk, Damen continued, gray eyes never leaving her face. Photos, videos, things that could destroy Morrow's empire and put him in a cage for the rest of his miserable life. Elena's hands stilled on the bandage she was wrapping around his ribs. "So you killed him?" "No." Damen's voice dropped to a whisper. "I was hired to retrieve the evidence, but your brother, he was supposed to be a simple mechanic. Instead, I found someone with principles, someone who wouldn't be bought." He reached out, fingers brushing against her wrist. His touch was surprisingly gentle for a killer. "Miguel Vasquez reminded me of someone I used to be, someone I thought I'd buried a long time ago." His grip tightened. "So I made a choice that's probably going to get us both killed." "Which was?" "I helped him disappear." The words hit Elena like a physical blow. She stumbled backward, knocking over a tray of surgical instruments. The metal clattered against the floor like breaking bones. "You're lying. The police found blood. His blood. Chicken blood from the market down the street. Miguel's idea." Damen's smile was grim. "Said you'd taught him that from your pre-med days." "How similar it looks under basic testing." Elena's legs gave out. She sank into a chair, the weight of 3 months of grief and rage and desperate hope crushing down on her chest. "Miguel is alive. For now." Damen's voice turned cold. "But he won't be for long if Morrow figures out what I did. And after tonight's accident, someone's going to start asking questions. Someone's going to realize I'm not dead. The accident wasn't an accident. Morrow's getting nervous. I've been his cleaner for 5 years, which means I know where all his bodies are buried. Literally." Damen pushed himself up straighter, wincing. "He wanted to tie up loose ends before your brother resurfaces with that evidence." Elena's mind raced, physician instincts warring with something darker, something that whispered of revenge and justice and the blurred line between them. "Where is Miguel?" "Safe house, 40 miles outside the city." Damen's eyes searched her face. "But there's a problem." "Of course there is. The evidence your brother took, he hid it. Won't tell me where. Won't give it to anyone except you." Damen leaned forward, and despite his injuries, despite the blood and pain, he looked predatory. "He doesn't trust me." "Smart man, why are you telling me this?" Elena stood, crossing her arms. "Why not just let Morrow kill you? Let this whole mess disappear?" Damen's laugh was rough, like gravel scraping stone. "Because I'm tired, doctor. Tired of being the monster in other people's nightmares. Your brother, he looked at me like I could be something else. Something better." His gray eyes held hers, and Elena saw something she hadn't expected. Hope. "He was wrong," Damen continued. "But for one goddamn moment, I wanted to believe him. So I made a choice, and now we're both going to pay for it unless you help me." "Help you do what?" "Get the evidence. Destroy Morrow. And maybe, if we're very lucky and very ruthless, survive long enough to see morning." Elena thought of Mrs. Chen's family, the grief in their eyes when she'd told them about the complication. She thought of Miguel, alive somewhere waiting for her. She thought of the pills, in her locker that were supposed to make her sharper, but were slowly turning her into someone she didn't recognize. She thought of the syringe she'd almost used to. "Kill this man. I want to see Miguel first. Before I do anything else, not possible. Morrow's people are watching your apartment, your car. Probably have this hospital under surveillance." Damen's voice was flat, professional. "The moment you leave this building, you're a target. The moment I leave this building, I'm a corpse." "Then what do you suggest?" Damen's smile was sharp as broken glass. "We disappear, together, right Now. Elena looked at the man on her table. Criminal. Killer. The person who'd saved her brother's life and was now offering her a chance at the truth. Or a chance at getting them all killed. There's something you should know, she said quietly. Before we do this. What? I killed someone today. A patient. My hands were shaking and I made a mistake and now she's dead. The confession spilled out like poison from a wound. So if you're looking for someone good, someone worthy of redemption, you're looking at the wrong person. Damen studied her for a long moment. Then he reached out and took her trembling hand in his steady one. Good, he said. Then we're perfect for each other. The hospital fire alarm suddenly screamed to life, and through the window Elena saw smoke beginning to pour from the east wing. Damen's eyes went wide. Morrow, he's here. Smoke poured under the door of Trauma Bay 3 like a living thing, curling and reaching. The fire alarm's scream was deafening, but beneath it, Elena heard something worse. Gunshots. How many men does Morrow have in the building? She was already moving, ripping IV lines from Damen's arm, grabbing gauze to pack his wounds. Enough. Damen gritted his teeth as she hauled him to his feet. And they're not here to negotiate. They stumbled into the hallway, and chaos swallowed them whole. Patients in gowns, nurses shouting, security trying to maintain order as smoke filled the corridor. Through the haze, Elena saw them. 3 men in suits moving against the crowd, hands inside their jackets. There. Damen's voice was tight with pain. Service elevator. End of the hall. They ran. Every step sent fresh blood seeping through Damen's bandages, but he kept moving, kept his hand locked around Elena's wrist like he was afraid she'd disappear. The service elevator doors were closing when they reached it. Elena shoved her hand between them, forcing them open. Inside, a janitor stared at them with wide eyes. Out, Damen said quietly. Something in his voice made the man move without question. The doors closed, and they were alone in the descending box, breathing hard, the smell of smoke and blood thick between them. They'll be waiting in the garage, Elena said. I know. So what's the plan? Damen's smile was grim. We improvise. The elevator shuddered to a stop. Basement level. The doors opened onto a dark parking structure. Concrete pillars casting long shadows under flickering fluorescent lights. And there, leaning against a black sedan, was a woman Elena had never seen before. Tall, elegant, with silver hair pulled back in a severe bun. She held a gun loosely at her side. Hello, Damen, the woman said. Her voice was cultured, almost warm. You're looking terrible. Vivian. Damen's entire body tensed. I should have known. You always were sentimental. It makes you predictable. Vivian's eyes slid to Elena. Dr. Vasquez. I've heard so much about you. About your struggles. Such a shame about Mrs. Chen. Elena's blood turned to ice. How do you know about that? Darling, I know everything. It's why Mr. Morrow pays me so well. Vivian raised the gun, casual as pointing a finger. Now, Damen, you're going to tell me where Miguel Vasquez is hiding. And then I'm going to kill you both. Nothing personal. It's always personal with you, Vivian. Damen stepped in front of Elena, his body a shield despite his injuries. You trained me, made me what I am, and now you're going to throw me away for Morrow? Something flickered across Vivian's face. Almost regret, almost. You broke the rules. You don't save targets, Damen. You eliminate them. I taught you that. You taught me a lot of things, Damen said quietly, including where you hide your backup piece. He moved faster than Elena thought possible for a man who'd been dying an hour ago. His hand shot out, striking Vivian's wrist. The gun clattered across concrete, but Vivian was already spinning, a knife appearing in her other hand like magic. Elena, run! Damen's shout echoed off the walls as he grappled with Vivian. But Elena didn't run. She couldn't. Because she saw it now, the way they moved together, anticipated each other's strikes. This wasn't just mentor and student. This had been intimate. You loved her, Elena breathed. Damen's eyes met hers for a split second, and in that moment of distraction, Vivian's knife found its mark. Blood bloomed across his side, fresh and hot. I loved what she pretended to be, Damen gasped, staggering back. Before I realized she had no heart to give. Vivian's smile was sad. You always were naive about love, my darling boy. She raised the knife again, and Elena saw how this would end. Damen was too weak, too injured. Vivian would kill him, then her, then Miguel. The evidence would disappear. Morrow would win. Unless... Elena's hand closed around a tire iron leaning against the wall. Her hands, the hands that had killed Mrs. Chen through negligence, the hands that shook with addiction and exhaustion, were suddenly, terrifyingly steady. She swung. The tire iron connected with Vivian's skull with a sound like a watermelon splitting. The older woman crumpled, knife clattering from nerveless fingers, blood pooling beneath her silver hair. The parking garage fell silent except for Damen's ragged breathing and Elena's thundering heartbeat. Is she dead? Elena's voice sounded far away, like it belonged to someone else. Damen knelt beside Vivian, fingers at her throat. No, but she will be without medical attention. He looked up at Elena, and something in his gaze made her want to run. Not fear, worse, recognition, like looking into a dark mirror. You didn't hesitate, he said softly. She was going to kill you. You didn't know me 3 hours ago. For all you know, I deserve to die. Damen stood, wincing. But you made a choice, just like I made a choice with your brother. Elena stared at the tire iron in her hands, at Vivian's blood painting the metal. What does that make us? Survivors. Damen took the tire iron gently from her grip. Or monsters. Depends who's telling the story. He pulled keys from Vivian's pocket, limped to the black sedan. We need to move. Morrow's men will be here any second. Elena looked at Vivian, unconscious and bleeding. Looked at the elevator where more of Morrow's people would be coming. Looked at Damen, this killer who'd saved her brother, who'd looked at her with hope in his eyes when he talked about redemption. She got in the car. As Damen pulled out of the parking garage, tires squealing, Elena saw them in the rearview mirror. Men in suits pouring from the elevator, guns drawn. One of them knelt beside Vivian's body. They'll save her, Elena whispered. More prayer than statement. Probably. Damen's hands were white-knuckled on the wheel, blood seeping through his shirt. Does it matter? Elena thought about Mrs. Chen, about Miguel, about the pills in her locker she'd never take again, about the line between healer and killer, and how easy it had been to cross. No, she said, it doesn't. Damen glanced at her, and something passed between them. Understanding. Recognition. The acknowledgement of two people who'd seen the worst of themselves and chosen to keep breathing anyway. The safe house is 40 miles north, he said, but there's something you need to know before we get there. What? Your brother, he thinks you're dead. Elena's world tilted. What? I told him you died 6 weeks ago. Car accident. It was the only way to keep him from trying to contact you, from putting you in danger. Damen's voice was flat, professional, lying. So when we get there, when you walk through that door, you're going to be a ghost. You bastard. The words came out broken. He's been grieving me. For 6 weeks he's been... alive. He's been alive, Elena, because I lied. Damen's gray eyes met hers in the rearview mirror. Would you rather I told him the truth? Let him call you, visit you, lead Morrow straight to both of you? Elena wanted to hit him. Wanted to jump from the moving car. Wanted to scream. Instead, she laughed. Harsh and bitter and real. We really are perfect for each other. The city lights fell away behind them as they drove into the dark. Two broken people bound by blood and lies and the desperate hope that maybe, somewhere ahead, there was still a chance for something like redemption. But ahead, in the darkness, Elena didn't see hope. She saw Miguel's face when he learned she was alive. She saw the moment he'd realize what she'd become to survive this night. And she knew, with terrible certainty, that the real betrayal was still coming. The safe house was a cabin that smelled like pine and decay, hidden at the end of a dirt road that disappeared into forest. Rain hammered the roof like accusations as Damen killed the engine. Wait here, he said, but Elena was already out of the car, already moving toward the door with her heart in her throat. Miguel. Miguel alive. Miguel breathing and whole and hers again. The door opened before she reached it, and there he was. Thinner than she remembered, a beard covering his jaw, but those eyes, those were Miguel's eyes. The eyes that had watched their mother die when he was 12. The eyes that had begged Elena for help when the pills took hold of him 5 years ago. The eyes that had been clear and bright and full of hope the last time she saw him, 3 months ago, a lifetime ago. No. Miguel's voice cracked. No, you're not real. You're dead. I'm here. Elena's voice broke. Miguel, I'm here. I'm alive. He staggered backward like she'd struck him. Damen said. He told me you were gone. He showed me the death certificate. The obituary. I mourned you. I fucking mourned you. The rage in his voice cut deeper than any blade. Damen appeared in the doorway behind Miguel, face carefully blank. I lied, Damen said simply. To protect you both. Miguel turned on him with murder in his eyes. You let me think my sister was dead for 6 weeks. 6 weeks of knowing I'd never hear her voice again. Never tell her I was sorry for all the shit I put her through. Never. His fist caught Damen in the jaw. Blood exploded from Damen's split lip, but he didn't fight back. Didn't even try to block the second punch or the third. Miguel, stop! Elena grabbed her brother's arm. He saved your life. By killing you. Miguel's face was wet with tears. What kind of salvation is that? The kind that kept you breathing. Damen's voice was quiet, terrible. Would you rather I'd let you call her? Let Morrow's people trace the call, find you both? At least this way, one of you got to live. You didn't get to make that choice. Someone had to. Damen wiped blood from his mouth. And I'm the only one here who's comfortable being the monster. The words hung in the air like smoke. Miguel looked at Elena, really looked at her, and she saw the moment he noticed. The hollow in her cheeks, the tremor in her hands, the darkness behind her eyes that matched his own from years ago. Ellie. His voice softened. Childhood nickname a ghost between them. What happened to you? She wanted to lie. Wanted to be the strong older sister who'd pulled him from the edge of oblivion, who'd paid for his rehab with money she didn't have, who'd believed in him when no one else would. But she was so tired of lying. I made a mistake. A patient died because I was working too many hours, taking too many pills to stay awake. The confession spilled out like blood from a wound, and then a killer showed up in my ER and told me you were alive, and I chose to save him instead of letting him die. I chose this. She gestured at the cabin, at Damen, at the gun on the table that hadn't been there before tonight. I chose to be here with you, even if it meant becoming someone you wouldn't recognize. Miguel stared at her for a long moment. Then he pulled her into his arms and Elena shattered. 3 months of grief and rage and desperate hope poured out in sobs that shook her whole body. I recognize you, Miguel whispered against her hair. You're my sister, the one who never gave up on me, even when I gave up on myself. Behind them, Damen turned away, and Elena saw something crack in his carefully maintained armor, something that looked like longing. Where's the evidence? Damen's voice was rough. We need to move before Morrow figures out where we are. Miguel released Elena slowly, reluctantly. I'll tell you. But first you need to know something. What? The evidence isn't just photos and videos. Miguel's face was grim. It's testimony from someone who worked for Morrow for 20 years. Someone who knows every crime, every payoff, every body. Damen went very still. Who? Your father. The world stopped. Elena saw it hit Damen like a physical blow, saw every carefully constructed wall crash down in an instant. My father is dead, has been for 3 years. Your father faked his death 3 years ago, just like I faked mine 3 months ago. Miguel pulled a laptop from a drawer, opened it. He's been hiding, gathering evidence, waiting for the right moment to bring Morrow down. When I found that evidence in the car, he contacted me. Made a deal. On the screen was a video. A man who looked like an older, harder version of Damen stared into the camera. My name is Marcus Cross, the man said, and I've spent 20 years killing for Vincent Morrow. This is my confession. Damen's hand shot out, slammed the laptop closed. No, this is a trap. My father wouldn't... Your father wants redemption, Miguel interrupted. Just like you. Just like all of us. Redemption. Damen's laugh was broken glass. My father taught me how to kill when I was 15. He turned me into this. And now you're telling me he wants redemption? I'm telling you he wants to make things right before he dies. He has cancer. 6 months, maybe less. Miguel's voice was gentle. He asked for you specifically. Said you deserve to know the truth. The truth. Damen's hands were shaking. The truth is he destroyed me, made me into something that can't be unmade. And now he wants what? Forgiveness? He wants to save you, Miguel said quietly. Before it's too late. Damen looked at Elena, and in his eyes she saw every terrible choice, every life taken, every piece of himself he'd carved away to survive. It's already too late. The window exploded inward. Glass and wood splinters filled the air as gunfire erupted. Elena hit the floor, Miguel on top of her, his body a shield just like Damen's had been in the hospital parking garage. Back door. Damen's shout was barely audible over the chaos. He was returning fire, the gun from the table now in his hands, each shot precise and deadly. They ran. Through the cabin, through the kitchen, out into the storm. Rain hammered down like judgment as they sprinted for the tree line. Behind them, the cabin erupted in flames. Orange light painted the night, casting their shadows long and twisted across the forest floor. They found us, Miguel gasped. How did they find us? Elena's blood turned to ice, because she knew. She'd known from the moment in the parking garage, from the moment she'd seen Vivian's face. Damen. Her voice cut through the rain. Your phone. The one you had at the hospital. Where is it? His face went white. In my jacket. In the car. At the cabin. They're tracking it. They've been tracking it since the hospital. Elena's mind raced. Physician training warring with survival instinct. Which means they know exactly where. The shot came from nowhere and everywhere. One moment Miguel was running beside her. The next he was falling, red blooming across his shoulder like a rose, like the tattoo their mother had loved. No. Elena's scream tore through the night as she fell to her knees beside her brother. Miguel, stay with me. Stay with me. Blood pulsed between her fingers, hot and urgent. Too much blood. The shot had hit the subclavian artery. Without immediate surgery, Miguel had minutes, maybe less. Ellie. Miguel's hand found hers, slick with blood. Tell them. Tell them where Dad is. The evidence. It's worth it. It has to be worth it. No. No, you're going to tell them yourself. You're going to Colorado. Abandoned mining town called Redemption. Stupid name. He always had a sense of humor. Miguel's laugh bubbled with blood. The evidence is with him. Everything Morrow's ever done. Everyone he's ever owned. Miguel, please. I love you, Ellie. Never stopped. Not once. His eyes found Damen. Take care of her, or I'll haunt you. I will. Damen's voice was raw. I swear it, Miguel smiled. Then his eyes closed, and his hand went slack in Elena's. The world ended. Not with fire or flood or fury. With silence. With the absence of a heartbeat that had been the rhythm of Elena's world for 26 years. She didn't scream. Didn't cry. Didn't make a sound. She simply knelt there in the mud and rain, holding her brother's body, while something inside her calcified into something harder than diamond, sharper than steel. When she finally looked up, Damen was standing over her, gun raised, pointing at the tree line where Morrow's men were closing in. Elena. His voice was gentle, almost kind. We have to go. No, they'll kill you. They'll kill us both. Good. The word came out flat, emotionless. We deserve it. Maybe. Damen lowered the gun, held out his hand. But your brother gave us something worth living for. Worth dying for. We owe him the truth. Elena looked at Miguel's face, peaceful in death, finally free from the weight of the world. She thought of her mother, dead from cancer when Miguel was 12. She thought of Mrs. Chen, dead from Elena's shaking hands. She thought of Vivian, maybe dead, maybe alive, bleeding in a parking garage. She thought of all the death that followed them like a shadow. The truth, she whispered. Then she stood, leaving Miguel's body in the rain, and took Damen's outstretched hand. His fingers closed around hers, steady and sure, and together they ran into the darkness. The town called Redemption was a ghost, abandoned silver mines and hollow buildings crumbling back into Colorado earth. Dawn painted the mountains blood red as Elena and Damen walked through streets that had forgotten the sound of footsteps. They'd driven through the night, silent except for the ghosts between them. Miguel's last words. Vivian's blood, Mrs. Chen's family, all the lives they'd broken in the name of survival. There. Damen pointed to a church at the end of the main street. its steeple still standing despite decades of neglect. He always did have a sense of irony. The church doors opened with a groan. Inside, dust motes danced in shafts of morning light, and sitting in the front pew, looking impossibly small and impossibly familiar, was Marcus Cross. He was dying. Elena could see it in the gray pallor of his skin, the way his body had collapsed in on itself. Cancer, eating him from the inside. Justice, perhaps, or just biology, indifferent to morality. Damen. Marcus's voice was a ghost of what it must have been. You came. Miguel Vasquez is dead. Damen's words fell like stones into still water. He gave his life to bring us here, so you better have something worth dying for. Marcus's eyes closed. I was afraid of that. He was a good kid. Reminded me of you before I ruined you. Don't. Damen's voice cracked. Don't pretend you cared. Not now, I didn't care. Not when it mattered. Marcus looked at Elena. You're the sister. The doctor. I'm sorry for your loss. Are you? Elena's voice was ice. Or are you just sorry you're dying before you can make yourself feel better about all the lives you destroyed? Marcus smiled, thin and terrible. Smart. Damen always did fall for smart women. He coughed, blood flecking his lips. The evidence is in the basement. 15 years of testimony, videos, documents, enough to put Morrow and everyone in his empire behind bars for life. Why now? Damen demanded. Why wait until you're dying to do the right thing? Because I'm a coward. The admission was simple, devastating. Because I told myself I was protecting you by keeping you in this life. Because I was afraid that if I brought Morrow down, you'd go down with him. Marcus's eyes met his son's. But you're already going down, Damen. I can see it in your eyes. The same look I saw in the mirror every morning for 20 years. What look? A man who's forgotten how to live with himself. Silence fell like ash. Outside, the wind picked up, howling through the empty town. There's something else, Marcus said quietly. Morrow knows you're here. I made sure of it. Elena's blood turned to ice. What? I called him last night. Told him exactly where to find you. Marcus's smile was bitter. Because I need a witness. Someone who can testify that I gave the evidence willingly. That I wasn't coerced. Someone who can't make it disappear. You used us as bait. Damen's voice was flat, emotionless. You're using your own son as bait. Yes. No apology. No excuse, just brutal truth. Because this is bigger than us. Bigger than you and me and our poisoned legacy. Morrow has corrupted this city for 30 years. He owns judges, police, politicians. The only way to bring him down is to make such a public spectacle that even his power can't contain it. And if we die in the process? Elena's hands were shaking again. Not from pills this time. From rage. Then we die doing something that matters. Marcus pulled out a phone, held it up. The screen showed a live feed, broadcasting to every major news outlet in the state. I started streaming 5 minutes ago. Right now, thousands of people are watching, listening, bearing witness. On the phone, Elena saw herself and Damen, saw the church interior, saw Marcus in his pew, saw everything. When Morrow gets here, Marcus continued, when he tries to kill us to protect his empire, the whole world will see. They'll see what he is, what we all are, and maybe, just maybe, it'll be enough. You're insane. But Damen was already moving, checking exits, calculating angles, falling back into old training. How long until they arrive? They're already here. The church door exploded inward. Vincent Morrow stood silhouetted against the dawn, flanked by 6 men with guns. He was smaller than Elena expected, insignificant looking, the kind of man you'd pass on the street without a second glance, until you saw his eyes. Cold and calculating and utterly without mercy. Marcus. Morrow's voice was pleasant, conversational. You always were theatrical. But this, live streaming your confession? He laughed. I own the networks. This feed will be scrubbed in minutes. Maybe. Marcus coughed, blood staining his lips. But not before 10,000 people download it. Not before it spreads across social media like wildfire. You can't contain this, Vincent. It's already too late. Morrow's smile vanished. Then I'll just have to make sure there's no one left alive to testify. He raised his gun, aimed at Marcus's head. Damen moved. He threw himself in front of his father, the man who'd destroyed him. The man who'd made him into a killer. The man who was using him one final time. The bullet meant for Marcus caught Damen in the chest. Elena screamed. The sound ripped from somewhere primal, somewhere beyond language or reason. She caught Damen as he fell, her hands already assessing the wound. Through and through, high right chest, pneumothorax, possible cardiac involvement. Survivable, maybe, with immediate intervention. But there was no intervention coming. Only Morrow's gun, now aimed at her head. Dr. Vasquez. Morrow's voice was almost gentle. I hear you made a mistake at the hospital. Killed a patient. Such a shame. And now here you are, covered in blood again. They'll say you went mad. Killed everyone here in some kind of psychotic break. They'll see you on the video. Elena spat. They'll see everything. They'll see edited footage that tells the story I want them to tell. Morrow's finger tightened on the trigger. Goodbye, doctor. No. Marcus's voice was stronger than it had been. Look at the phone, Vincent. Look at the viewer count. Morrow glanced at the phone screen. His face went white. 50,000 viewers. 100,000. 200,000. The feed had gone viral. You can kill us, Marcus said softly. But you can't kill the truth. Not anymore. It's out there. Living. Breathing. Growing. And no amount of money or power can put it back in the box. Morrow's hand shook. For a moment, Elena saw him calculate the odds, saw him realize he'd lost. Then his face hardened. If I'm going down, he said, I'm taking all of you with me. He pulled the trigger. The bullet never reached Elena. Marcus had moved, dying body suddenly swift, throwing himself between his son's broken family and the man who'd owned them both for so long. The shot took him in the heart. He crumpled, blood spreading across the church floor like a sacrament. Before Morrow could fire again, sirens erupted outside. Police, FBI, news vans, all drawn by the viral feed, by the spectacle Marcus had orchestrated with his dying breath. Morrow looked at his gun, at the phone still streaming, at Elena holding Damen's bleeding body. Then he raised the weapon to his own head. Don't, Elena's voice cut through the chaos. Don't give yourself the easy way out. Face what you've done, all of it. For a long moment, Morrow stared at her. Then slowly, he lowered the gun. Police poured through the door, weapons drawn, shouting commands. Morrow was on the ground, hands behind his head, looking small and insignificant and utterly defeated. Elena didn't watch. She was too busy keeping pressure on Damen's wound, too busy counting his heartbeats, too busy refusing to let another person die in her arms. Stay with me, she whispered. Damen, stay with me. His gray eyes opened, found hers. Did we win? I don't know. I don't think anyone wins in stories like ours. But we survived. Some of us. The grief was a living thing, crushing and vast. Miguel's face in the rain, Marcus's body cooling on church floor, Mrs. Chen's family weeping in a hospital corridor. Some of us is enough. Damen breathed. Has to be. Paramedics arrived, taking over, loading Damen onto a stretcher. Elena stood swaying, covered in blood that wasn't hers, watching them work with the detached efficiency she'd once possessed. A detective approached, badge in hand, questions already forming on her lips. I killed a patient, Elena said before the detective could speak. At Mercy General. Medication error. It's all in my records. The detective blinked. Ma'am, that's not why I'm here. It should be. I'm a doctor who took a life through negligence. I should pay for that. You will. But right now, we need your testimony about Vincent Morrow. About what happened here. Elena looked at the church. At Marcus's body being loaded into a bag. At Damen being carried to an ambulance. At the phone on the pew, still streaming, bearing witness to everything. I'll tell you the truth, she said. All of it. Even the parts that destroy me. That's all we ask. 6 months later, Elena stood in a courtroom and watched Vincent Morrow receive 15 life sentences without possibility of parole. She watched his empire crumble, watched dozens of his associates led away in chains, watched the city begin the slow work of healing from 3 decades of corruption. She also stood before a medical review board and surrendered her license. listened as Mrs. Chen's family read their victim impact statement, accepted her sentence of 2 years in a treatment facility for her addiction, followed by 5 years probation. "I deserve worse," she told the judge. "Probably," the judge agreed. "But justice isn't always about what we deserve. Sometimes it's about what serves the greater good." Damen recovered from his gunshot wound. He testified against Morrow, accepted a plea deal in exchange for his cooperation, and was sentenced to 10 years in federal prison for his crimes as Morrow's enforcer. They wrote letters. Carefully worded, always aware that guards would read them, but honest in ways they'd never been when they could speak face to face. In one letter, Damen wrote, "My father died to give me a chance at redemption. I'm not sure I deserve it, but I'm going to try." In another, Elena wrote, "Miguel believed people could change, could become something better than their worst moments. I'm going to spend the rest of my life proving he was right." On the 5th anniversary of that night in the church, Elena walked out of the treatment facility, clean and sober and ready to face the world. She couldn't practice medicine anymore, but she could teach, could counsel, could help other doctors avoid the mistakes that had cost her everything. 3 years after that, Damen walked out of prison early for good behavior. Elena was waiting for him, older now, scarred but somehow softer. They stood on opposite sides of the parking lot, two people who'd seen the worst of each other and themselves, who'd been forged in blood and fire and terrible choices. "I'm not looking for forgiveness," Damen said when he finally reached her. "Good. Because I'm not offering it. Not for what we've done." "Then what are we doing here?" Elena took his hand, the same hand that had killed for Morrow, that had saved her brother, that had written letters filled with brutal honesty for 8 years. "We're doing the hard work of becoming people we can live with. Together if you want, or separately. But either way, we're doing it." Damen's smile was small, real, the first genuine smile she'd ever seen on his face. "Together sounds good." They walked away from the prison, into a future neither deserved, but both had earned through the slow, painful work of becoming something more than their worst moments. Behind them, the weight of the past. Ahead, the uncertainty of tomorrow. But in that moment, in the space between darkness and light, they were simply two people who'd survived. And somehow, impossibly, that was enough. The truth had cost them everything, but it had also set them free. The end.